January 7th, 2026, 3:15 a.m., 200 miles west of Moscow. Inside the cockpit, a Ukrainian F-16 pilot watches as his console lights up like a neon sign. A Russian S-400 battery has achieved a hard lock. This was supposed to be a stealthy approach, but a single radar blip has transformed a strategic strike into a high-speed survival race. The pilot has exactly 42 seconds to reach the release point for his Storm Shadow missile. Before a Mach 6 interceptor reaches his position, this isn't just a bombing run anymore. It is a desperate sprint against the most concentrated air defense network on the planet. The target tonight is 16, Prospect Budinogo, East Moscow. To a casual observer, it is just another industrial sprawl, but to the Kremlin, it is the MMPP salute, the beating heart of the Russian Air Force. This is where the AL-41 F-1S engines are born. These 32,000-pound thrust monsters are the only reason the Su-35 can dance in the sky. If these assembly lines stop, the production of Russia's most lethal fighter jets will flatline. But there is a reason no one has ever successfully hit this facility. Moscow is wrapped in a no-fly zone so dense, it would make a ghost sweat. We are talking about the S-400 Triumph, a system that claims to see a sparrow at the edge of the atmosphere. Attempting to fly into this web is usually a one-way ticket to a fiery hole in the ground. So, how do you solve an impossible equation? Most commanders would send a massive swarm and pray for luck. But the SBU has a different philosophy. Why use a hammer when you can use a magic trick? Tonight, the mission rests on the wings of just 2 F-16. Only 2. On paper, it looks like an impossible mission. But there is a hidden variable in the math that the Russian High Command hasn't accounted for. Pantsir units are sprouting up like mushrooms on every high-rise rooftop in Moscow. It looks like playing a game at the impossible difficulty level. But the Ukrainian pilots are laughing because the first pulse has just been launched. While the F-16s stay low, hugging the tree line at 200 feet to hide from the S-400's gaze, a phantom fleet of 40 Palanichia drones is already screaming toward the city. But here's the kicker. These aren't just drones. They are components of a tactical nightmare called the Echo Pulse 4:40 a.m. The freezing silence of the Russian countryside is shattered as the first pulse of Palanichia drones drops into the river valleys. These 700-pound hybrids are screaming at 560 miles per hour. They hug the water at a terrifying altitude of just 100 feet. Ukraine has divided its 40-drone Phantom fleet into 5 distinct pulses. Right now, Pulse 1 and Pulse 2 are leading the charge. To a radar operator, this looks like a desperate, amateurish swarm. And that is exactly what the SBU wants them to see. On the outer perimeter of Moscow, the 92 N6E gravestone radar of an S-400 battery swings toward the threat. The Russian operators don't see a sophisticated tactical maneuver. They see a target-rich environment. To them, it's like a group of teenagers trying to sneak into a vault by running through the front door. Targets locked. Permission to engage. The night sky erupts. Massive 48 N6 missiles roar off their launch rails, accelerating to Mach 6 in seconds. In the river valleys, the Palornithias have nowhere to hide. One by one, the Russian missiles find their marks. Pulse 1 is vaporized in less than 30 seconds. Pulse 2 fares no better. Shredded by long-range S-400s and the rapid-fire 30mm cannons of the Pantsir S-1 units. Inside the Russian command center, the atmosphere is electric. Operators are high-fiving, grinning as if they've already won a championship. They've just achieved an 80% intercept rate. Out of the first 16 drones, only 3 managed to slip through the kill zone, and those are likely damaged. Another peaceful night, one operator scoffs, leaning back in his chair. They begin the standard procedure of reloading their Pantsir tubes on the rooftops. They think they have broken the back of the Ukrainian attack. But here's the twist that turns their celebration into a strategic nightmare. What the Russians see as a failed attack is actually a masterclass in lead wolf tactics. Those first 2 pulses weren't meant to hit the factory. They were sacrificial lambs designed to force the defense network to scream its location into the digital void. Every time an S-400 radar pings a target, it creates a massive electromagnetic torch. Every time a Pantsir fires its cannons, it leaves a thermal fingerprint in the freezing air. While the Russian crews are busy celebrating, the final pulses of Palanityas, the seed variants, are recording every coordinate. The Russians think they are the hunters, but they've just turned themselves into the brightest targets on the map. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, the two Ukrainian F-16s are watching the show, waiting for the exact millisecond when the Russian defense is at its most vulnerable. 4:45 a.m. Inside the cockpit of the lead F-16, the fuel gauge is a grim reminder of the cost of survival. Flying at 200 feet for hundreds of miles is a thermal nightmare for the engines. The aircraft is fighting thick, soupy air, burning fuel 3 times faster than it would at high altitude. It is like running a marathon while breathing through a straw. The pilot checks his coordinates. 186 miles from the heart of Moscow.
Made them incredibly rare.
It is time. He yanks the stick, executing a violent pop-up maneuver. The F-16's nose points at the stars as it pushes toward 15,000 feet. This gives the Storm Shadow enough gravitational potential energy for its long-range glide. External fuel tanks fall away into the darkness to strip the jet of drag. Immediately after, 2 Storm Shadows release with a heavy thud. The missile wings pop open, engines ignite, and they begin their autonomous journey toward the salute factory. To mask these high-value predators, Ukraine unleashes pulses 3 and 4 of the Palanitia fleet. 16 more drones scream toward the capital, creating a chaotic wall of noise. However, the Russian defense has stopped celebrating and started calculating. The Big Bird search radar has finally achieved a solid track on the high-flying F-16. Simultaneously, a flight of Russian Su-35s equipped with R-37M missiles is vectoring in at Mach 5. The Moscow sky is ablaze. S-400 batteries are saturating the airspace. Pulses 3 and 4 are met with a wall of steel. The Palanityas are swatted out of the sky like flies. Then, the unthinkable happens. A Storm Shadow is picked up by a Pantsir S-1's thermal tracker. At this range, the missile's engine heat is a glowing beacon against the freezing morning air. The Pantsir operator does not hesitate. 2 interceptors streak up. Impact. The first Storm Shadow disappears in a violent thermal event 40 miles short of the target. Inside the F-16, the radar warning receiver is screaming a continuous, high-pitched tone. A Russian interceptor has a hard lock. The Ukrainian pilot doesn't wait to see the missile trail. He rolls the aircraft inverted and dives toward the Earth at a 60-degree angle. He pulls 9 Gs, turning his vision into a narrow tunnel of gray. He levels off at a terrifying 50 feet, using the terrain as a shield to break the radar lock. He is retreating.
Engine shortages have had a clear
the first Storm Shadow is gone. 16 more drones are now smoking scrap metal.
Permanently.
Out of 40 assets sent into the kill zone, 32 have been neutralized. To any observer, this looks like a total catastrophe. Ukraine has burned its fuel reserves and lost its most expensive weapon for 0 gain. The Russian command centers are erupting in cheers again. They are convinced they've just broken the last-ditch effort of the Ukrainian Air Force. Yet, as the first F-16 heads for the border, the second F-16 is still lurking in the shadows. The pilot is watching the fuel gauge and the clock. There are exactly 8 Palanityas left. Pulse 5. And this time, they aren't just carrying explosives. They carry the Lead Wolf software that has recorded every Russian radar frequency that just fired. The Russians have no idea. In their minds, Ukraine has exhausted its arsenal and its courage. Ironically, as they lower their guard, the final 8 drones cross the inner perimeter of Moscow. These are the SEAD variants, suppression of enemy air defenses. They are silent listeners, tuned specifically to the frequencies the Pantsir systems used minutes ago. Suddenly, the easy night turns into a cold-blooded ambush. A Pantsir operator near the Salute factory sees a flicker on his screen. Before he can
Every
shout a
sunrise
warning,
is a new
a
beginning.
700-pound Palanisha
For the few
screams
who
out of the
guard the
clouds
dawn,
at 560
duty
miles
calls
per
again.
hour. It isn't aiming for the building. It is diving straight down the throat of the radar dish. The impact is surgical. The drone's 100-pound warhead disintegrates the billion-dollar eyes of the defense system. One moment, the Pantsir is a high-tech marvel. The next, it is a 20-ton paperweight sitting on a rooftop, sparking like a broken toaster. In less than 60 seconds, 3 of these Guardian systems are silenced. It is a tactical catastrophe. By taking out those specific units, Ukraine ripped a 10-mile wide blind spot in Moscow's inner shield. Imagine the panic in the command center. Their screens are going fuzzy, their eyes are being poked out. And the gap they just left open is exactly where the real predators are headed. 300 miles away, the second F-16 pilot sees the blind spot bloom on his data link. He doesn't waste a heartbeat. He pops up to 15,000 feet and releases 2 more Storm Shadows. 2 900-pound cruise missiles drop into the darkness. They head straight for the smoking hole in Moscow sky. The Russians finally realize that the easy targets were just the appetizer. The main course is moving at Mach 0.9 directly toward their heart. The Russian commander screams to activate Code Black, the chemical curtains. On every street corner surrounding the factory, massive canisters erupt. The entire facility is buried under a thick, artificial white fog. This is a multispectral smoke screen designed to scatter infrared light. Simultaneously, high-power jammers flood the area with heat noise to fry incoming sensors. The Russian commander leans back with a cold smirk. Their seekers are blind now. All they can see is smoke. To any normal missile, he would be right. But the 2026 Spec Storm Shadow doesn't just see, it remembers. This is the ace in the hole. Ukraine has upgraded these missiles with AI-driven DSMAC, Digital Scene Mapping and Correlation. The Storm Shadow isn't just looking for a heat signature.
The evidence
It is running a topographical comparison. It compares the geometric shapes of the buildings against a 3D digital model in its memory.
We've got a serious issue with
It is like
building.
finding your
It's
front
dropping
door
fast.
in a total
We need an
blackout.
immediate
You don't
divert.
need a flashlight if you know exactly how many steps it is from the sidewalk. One storm shadow is clipped by flak and tumbles into a parking lot. But the second one executes a violent pop-up maneuver at the final waypoint. It identifies the unique geometric skeleton of the main assembly hall through the fog. The missile dives. At the same time, the remaining Palanisha drones are being shredded by interceptors. But in the chaos of war, even a kill for the defender can be a hit for the attacker. A crippled Palanisha, its wings sheared off, tumbles like a flaming spear. It hits a high-voltage substation 50 feet away from the factory. The impact creates a massive electrical arc that lights up the Moscow fog. The power surge travels instantly into the factory's secondary systems. Burning drone debris laden with jet fuel slams into a warehouse storing hydraulic oil. A significant thermal event begins, the hydraulic oil ignites, and then the storm shadow arrives. The 1,000-pound missile punches through the reinforced concrete roof at Mach 0.9. The precursor charge tunnels 10 feet into the foundation before the main warhead detonates. The result is a structural catastrophe. The pressure wave meets the raging chemical fire from the warehouse. The roof of the Salute plant begins to fold like a cardboard box. The Russian commander's smirk is gone. He just watched his perfect defense fail against 21st century logic. The heart of the Sukhoi has been ripped open. As the sun rises over Moscow, the chemical fog clears to reveal a grim sight. A 200-foot section of the roof is engulfed in a fierce orange glow. The storm shadow's impact was surgical. The flaming debris from the drones turned the testing area into a persistent fire. Inside that hall sit the holy grails of Russian industry. High-precision CNC milling machines. These machines carve turbine blades with tolerances of less than 1,000th of an inch. They are the only reason the Su-35 engines don't explode under full afterburner. When the roof burns, it isn't just the fire that does damage. It is the smoke, the soot, and the corrosive firefighting foam being dumped on the machines. A single microscopic layer of ash can ruin a 5-axis mill. Ukraine didn't need to level the building. They just needed to ruin the air quality inside it. By the time the last flame is extinguished, the production line has been frozen for months. This was a high-stakes game of poker in the world's most dangerous casino. Ukraine walked to the table with 2 F-16s and a handful of drones, facing a house that had every radar and missile system on the planet. They didn't win the whole pot, but they won enough to change the map. Ukraine burned Russia's sense of security. They proved that a smarter, more creative opponent will always find the echo in your defense. So, was it worth the gamble? What do you think? Let us know by leaving a comment below. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Next time, we look at how Ukraine is turning old Soviet junk into the one thing Russia is truly afraid of.